Hello and welcome back to GoldStockTrades.com. Today we have a new and special guest with us, Roger Rosmus. Roger's CEO of an explorer in the Golden Triangle, BC, Goliath Resources Limited, which can be traded as GOT on the TSX Venture. Goliath's a precious metals project generator focused on the Golden Triangle. And Roger, thanks for being here with us today. Give us an introduction into the Golden Triangle and the recent excitement in the Golden Triangle from a few companies that have been quite successful.
Sure, Jeb. Thanks for having me. Well, the Golden Triangle is in northwestern British Columbia, essentially where Alaska sort of comes down and tips, gets very close to BC. Essentially, that's sort of the area that would be, I guess, construed as the Golden Triangle. Roots go back to 1861. There was quite a bit of a gold rush there. I think at that time there was more than 800 prospectors left Victoria basically to go and search for gold in this particular area. And I guess fast forward to more recent times, Murray Pezim, who discovered the Eskay Creek back in the 80s, made it quite infamous for large, high-grade type deposits in the zone, which ultimately become another discovery of Snip, as well as the Premier mine. So back in the day, there wasn't a ton of infrastructure, and what's changed more recently is now there's actually road access. A lot of this area does have power available close by, so infrastructure is no longer a bigger issue, certainly in the southern portion of the current triangle. And then fast forward to the last few years here, there's literally 30 some odd companies exploring in the triangle and surrounding area. More recently, I guess Pretium just went into production here, I guess, a couple of years ago. One that's getting close is the KSM with Seabridge. And quite a bit of money has been put into this area, just during the past few years, obviously with the new infrastructure in place, just making it a lot more attainable, and CapEx for certain projects not as a lower benchmark in that regard. And on the exploration side, there was two companies in particular I'd like to talk about. Is Garibaldi Resources. They trade on the venture as well. Symbol is GGI. And what they had was a widespread volcanic breccia exposed at surface, and ultimately they had a discovery last year. They went from literally 12 cents a share, went up to over $5 a share, and which would have been about a 44 bagger if anyone was able to obviously catch the top of that thing. And then the other one, GT Gold Corp. Trading at our GTT on the venture. They were trading about 22 cents before they drilled. They did hit a fairly large porphyry target. Their stock went up to $2.76. This is all 2017 last year. This is from July to September. That would have been about a 13 bagger. And what's happening in the area with the global warming? You've got these glaciers now that have receded. For the most part, the permanent snowpack is gone, and you've got this brand new areas that have never been seen before in thousands of years, which are containing certainly in our projects we're seeing widespread high-grade gold, silver, and/or copper in bedrock at surface, basically in situ and undisturbed. So these are all brand new discoveries that we have, and we're very excited about drilling two of these discoveries this year. Just as an example, roughly, let's call it 80% of the land that we have never had a BC min file, which is someone put a claim or a stake on it, or staked it for drilling or prospecting, because again these areas were not attainable whatsoever. They were covered in snow and ice, and for most part of the year. So we're very excited with what we're up to for this particular year.
And Goliath Resources is going to drill later this year. And you talk to us about the team, especially Bill Chornabay, who
Sure.
helped create a lot of value in the mining sector.
Sure. Yeah, good point. So I mean, the business model for the company is, we are a project generator of precious metal projects. We are not a operator, and the model is, if it's big and obvious, it'll tick all the boxes for a major, i.e., right geological setting, large area, high grade mineralization at surface, and obvious. Then that's what we're focused on. And this comes from Bill Chornabay, who essentially was the individual that put these packages of properties together. Using that model throughout his career, he discovered the Golden Mile here in Ontario, Canada, which got rolled, I guess, into Prodigy, and then ultimately taken out by Argonaut for I think it was about $320 million Canadian. And the next one after that, he actually went and staked the original Coffee Creek assets, the Supremo Zone, which ultimately got rolled into Kaminak, which was taken out by Goldcorp for over $520 million. He wasn't part of that particular takeout, but certainly he recognized something early stage, that there was something very special there. Unfortunately, he had to let the claims lapse because he couldn't raise any money at the time, and then I guess more recently he discovered a new scale district up in the Yukon, over 70 kilometers long, and he just inked a $53 million joint venture with Newmont Mining Corporation. So, based on his track record, he, his team that's been with him for many years, know what they're doing out in the field, and certainly I wouldn't, have this position if it wasn't for this particular group showing me these assets. And then, and just from the assets point of view, I've been in the financing world primarily on the financing side for the last, 20, 25 years. And, for the first time I saw these things, this to me was a sort of a life-changing moment where it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where something of this caliber become available to me, where, I went and, incorporated Goliath, and, have taken the company forward to, now be trading, on the venture under the GOT as well as Frankfurt Exchange B4IE symbol there. So we're quite excited, and I look forward to the drill season.
Roger, take us through some of the properties. I know that you have this Lucky Strike property, which is a gold target, and you also have a Copperhead project, which has high copper, or I guess many of these projects have multiple metals. So talk to us about what's so exciting about these projects and what's drawing so much interest, because I know that you recently raised a significant amount of money.
Sure. So we've got the four projects: Bingo, Gold Digger, Lucky Strike, and Copperhead. The two targets we're drilling, or the two properties we're drilling this year, is Lucky Strike and Copperhead. They're just south of the triangle. They're around Terrace and Smithers, BC, and just based on the amount of money that we were able to raise, we wanted to focus on the two areas that we believe will move the needle for us this year, upon us obviously drilling a target, or this porphyry target that we believe is at Lucky Strike, and this fault breccia, which is at Copperhead. So Lucky Strike essentially is situated, again, just slightly north of Terrace. It's an area that's the target area is over 2.4 kilometers by 3.4 kilometers. What makes this unique and what brought us to the area originally, or the team, was it is completely surrounded by the two most prolific placer creeks in the entire district. The old reports in the BC Min file show over 13,000 ounces of gold was produced, with nuggets over 6 ounces. So essentially all of the tributaries and the watershed comes right up to this area. That's anything flowing north, south, east, and west has placer gold in it. So we believe this prosperity zone, is the source of this placer gold. In addition to, onto our data for why we're drilling. We flew SkyTem. It came out with a textbook, pore-free geophysical signature that we know it's at least 2.5 kilometers by 1.5 kilometers wide, and we know it's at least 500 meters deep. There is actually a 3D video on our webpage, on the YouTube channel, that folks can take a look at if they're interested. And so as we're ticking the boxes through for where we're going to be drilling, we did do a very detailed soil grid. On top of the geophysical target was a 2 kilometer by 400 meter soil grid. That actually kicked up over 8 grams gold, 7.27 grams gold, 557 ppm copper, 65 ppm moly, 50 ppm tungsten, 4 ppm antimony, and 10 ppm bismuth, which is a textbook porphyry type signature in this particular area. So we will be drilling that target this year. We're doing some geophysics right now. We're going to be doing some IP. We're going to be doing some mapping and some trenching, and then ultimately drilling a little bit later this summer. So we're pretty excited about here. We're pretty confident that we're going to have at least one discovery here, because ultimately 6-ounce nuggets don't swim upstream, and we've got the placer, we've got the geophysical target, and we have the geochemistry as well. It all lines up that there's we identified these 3 bodies below the surface. We know it's at least 500 meters deep, and most likely deeper, and we hope to be proving up and validating that we do have porphyry target come this drill season. Right. And the next target we have is Copperhead, which is a little bit further to the south east, a little bit closer to Smithers. That's where we have an area where we've got massive and semi-massive sulfide breccia, widespread at surface outcrop over 450 meters. We've got grabs in there of close to 8% copper and over 45 grams per ton silver at surface. We did do some chip samples in there, fairly extensive. Everything started in mineralization, everything ended in mineralization. And here what we're going to be doing is we're also doing some geophysics. We're going to be doing some IP, some mapping, and some trenching as well prior to drilling. And that'll be happening on the front end of on our summer program. And if the folks go to our webpage, we've got all the photos, all the videos of all of these grab samples and chip samples we've taken. We've got potassic alteration as well at Copperhead at surface. There's a good photo there. And what's really key here, when I say tick the boxes for a major, we're in the right geological setting. We're getting high-grade material at surface. We have we're logging road access to Lucky Strike and Copperhead. We're 3 kilometers main power grid. We're 3 kilometers to a highway, and let's call it roughly 30, 35 kilometers to major infrastructure in Terrace and Smithers, BC.
Roger, we're one drill away from from potentially a discovery, and investors who follow the sector and who saw what happened in the Golden Triangle last year see the potential. So thank you so much, Roger Rosmus, CEO of Goliath Resources Limited, which can be traded as GOT on the TSX Venture. Roger, is there anything else that you want to say before we conclude?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, we've only talked about 2 of our targets. We have 2 other projects that we haven't even talked about, which are as good quality as Copperhead and Lucky Strike. And I would encourage any of the listeners and readers to take a look at the webpage. Look at our bingo property, look at our gold digger properties, which also have high-grade material at surface that's widespread of copper, gold, and silver. And I believe that for any folks that have any further questions, they can always reach out and call me.